What did I ever do to you? I'm just so tired of this all. Yeah, this all. Whatever this all is. Oh, she vanished. Ayase Kishimoto was staring out the window, only half paying attention to anything going on around her. There were no bars on the windows like there were in the rooms at Arkhart Medical, the place she'd been before. Outside, she could see the high-rise buildings of Shinjuku, and beyond them, a blazing evening sky. A few pigeons were flapping their wings furiously as they crossed the sky. Occasionally, she would wince in pain. Life is pain. Her eyes were empty and just a little tired. Her lips weren't humming the songs that had so entranced the young people of Shibuya. After her failed suicide attempt, she'd been brought to a big general hospital in Yoyogi. Her wounds had almost completely healed. Oh, were they just like tiny little pinpricks from landing in a bed of fucking roses? That's Takumi Nishijo for you. He couldn't pick the soft flowers. He went with the annoying, sharp ones. Her wounds had almost completely healed. The doctors had said it was a miracle that a fall from that height had ended in only a few minor scrapes and bruises. Yeah, you jumped from the 4th story, and you landed softly in a bed of flowers. If only it had been a mattress truck. Still, she'd hit her head hard, and she'd be hospitalized for observation. She'd been here over a week already. You see, Takumi Nishijo couldn't have made it a pillow? Fucking a goddamn Tempur-Pedic? He sucks. Of course, observation meant nothing more than a simple checkup once every 2 days. The rest of the time she was left alone. What a great medical center. She had the room to herself. There were no other beds in it. Her D-sword was up against the window. It was flashing with a pale light. It had been there the whole time, but nobody had noticed it. She didn't get many visitors. Phantasm fans were supposedly coming in huge numbers every day, but the hospital had banned them from seeing her so they wouldn't bother the other patients. She and her family weren't close. Almost nobody else came to see her. Her bandmates had come to see her once. When she'd brought up breaking up the band, though, they stopped coming at all. Like, yeah, we weren't that friendly. Our music sucked. Oh, no, not you. The door opened, and a nurse in white came in. This nurse sure does get around, unless she's like a Nurse Joy Pokemon style. Just, she's in every town. Ayase slowly turned toward her, and then took the thermometer out from under her arm, like she'd just remembered it was there. The nurse looked at the number on the digital display and wrote it down on the chart. Wow. I'm sure that's a lot in Fahrenheit. A mild fever, so yeah, it's probably over 100. Sorry to hear that. Ayase winced in pain again. Think of the song by Motionless in White. I'm gonna be fine! Or maybe it won't. The nurse smiled as she spoke and took the thermometer. Her expression was gentle, and there was something about her that put a patient at ease. Cool. But Ayase put her hand to her forehead and shook her head. Ever since she came here, Ayase had been dealing with a dull headache. Painful wasn't the word for it. Dull headache was the word for it. But there was an unpleasant sensation of something pulsing in her head. It was making it hard for her to think. That's a lot more words than painful, so you should probably just use painful. And her whole body felt as heavy as lead. This had happened to Ayase before, too. It was when she was at Arkhart Medical. The headaches had lasted 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. She'd been unable to sleep and emotionally unstable. She had for a whole year, she had a year-long headache. Oh my god. It was a past she didn't want to remember, a past she'd sealed away, her memories of 2 years ago. The pain was the trigger that made them come back in flashes. I don't like this. Mainly, like, she's crying, but she's clearly sweating, but the sweat looks like she's crying out of her forehead. A dark room, a small window with bars. Except for the small window, the walls were entirely covered with mirrors. Oh no, spooky mirrors. She'd been restrained in a steel chair in the center of the room. WWE style, those are meant for attacking people. You just annihilate somebody in the head with it. There was some kind of device on her head, with cords streaming off of it. Her hands were bound behind the chair's back. Her head was restrained and tilted up at a slight angle. There was no one else in the room. The only sounds were her panting for air and the straining of the metal chair. Drool flew from her lips, and a bestial howl came from her throat that one would have thought impossible for a girl her age. It was a very quiet form of torture. I disagree. That was quite loud. There was only one thing they were doing to her. A single drop of water. Oh, never mind. She's not sweating or crying out of her forehead. She's being boarded. That's great. Falling on her forehead from above in the same spot every time at exact 5-second intervals. That was all. She'd been stuck like that for 2 days with no rest. And now all she could think of was when the next drop would fall. Her senses were pushed to their limits. Each time a drop fell. It felt like every nerve in her body was being ripped apart. Like all the bones in her body were being shattered. Like a long, sharp awl was being driven into her skull. Like all the fluids in her body, blood included, were freezing. Thank you for blood included. I wouldn't have guessed that that was a part of it. Like all of her skin was rotting and sloughing? 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 I don't know what that word is. It was more than enough to drive her mad. Figuring out what that word is enough to make me mad. Ha. Ha. She snapped back to reality. Oh, there goes Gravity. Oh, there goes Gravity. Choke, but he won't give up that easy. Why would you put that in there? Why would you put that line in there? Mom spaghetti. Her whole body had started to shake when her dark memories came back. The dark memories that Stan. The nurse was gone from her room. It was dinner time, and there was a frantic rush of movement outside the doors. Ayase repeated the words that the nurse had said to herself. Was this headache really caused by the medicine? Or had she hit her head when she'd fallen? Or was it an effect of her old memories? She couldn't tell. Heh. Heh. Ayase wiped the sweat. There it is. There's that sweat on her forehead and began to laugh. Hell yeah, take that, God, bitch. Kill Takumi Nishijo. She whispered, as if in a trance. Then suddenly she heard a sound coming from the hallway. It was the pleasant sound of shoes on linoleum. Aha. They weren't the nurse's shoes, she could tell that much. The footsteps were getting closer to her room. There was a knock at the door. She pressed her lips together tightly in a frown. She could have just said she frowned. Oh, this fucking guy. He got a lot smaller. He's like 4'7" in this picture. Look at him, he's like a little boy. It was a man. I mean, your words. He was holding a fruit basket, the type commonly given as gifts. Seriously, she's like 6 inches taller than him. Ayase recognized the man. Thus, she looked at him suspiciously. I'm just here to sort of smile frown at you. He was a detective with the Tokyo Metropolitan Police. He'd once been tailing her as a person of interest in the New Gen case. I'm sorry I suspected you as a murderer. Well, a couple of melons. How about some grapes? He scratched his head cheerfully. For a detective, he seemed surprisingly laid back. I thought he was like the straight-laced one. At least she doesn't like him. The detective walked toward her bed. Ayase glanced at the D-sword on the windowsill. It was too far away for her to reach out and grab it and stab him in the face. Jesus Christ. Oh, there you go. He's normal height now. I was thinking you might want some company, so I brought you this fruit basket. I'm not staying. You can hang out with the fruit. You could see through my fruit basket ruse? The detective acted like he was shaken, but it felt a little like an act. He offered her the fruit basket with an innocent smile, practically forcing her to take it by placing it at the foot of her bed. Just get like a bushel of apples, or get the bag of grapes. Here you go. I didn't feel like getting an arrangement. I can't return it. It'll go bad. You can walk over to the window and grab that sword. Just cut this motherfucker's head off. It was clear the detective knew exactly what he was doing, but Ayase didn't really care. Her parents had disowned her when she was very little. They were the type to really care about what the neighbors thought of them, and Ayase was a problem child that they were eager to be rid of. She wasn't entirely cut off from them, though. They sent her enough money to cover her living expenses every month. Oh, well. Damn. He gave her a little bob of his head in apology. He said, a little weeble of his wobble. Ayase was only now starting to recover from her flashback earlier, and didn't really want to talk to the detective at all. She decided to get this over with as fast as possible. Heard you tried to kill yourself. What was that like? Isn't that special? Yeah, his name's Takumi Nishijo. Tell us everything you know about him. All I can do is give you fruit. The detective was grinning. He was clearly hiding something. Hell of a poker face, bud. When he laughed, you could really see just how young he was. Have him stand next to that bed and you can see how young he is. It's putting it lightly. That's a terrible way to judge that. Wearing a human skin. He should be. The detective laughed and shook his head. I shouldn't have told you that. I'm constantly leaking shit. He looks like Columbo. You can't miss him. A real Columbo vibe. Ayase remembered him. When they'd come to talk to her, it was the older man, not the one in front of her, who'd done most of the speaking. He'd been pretty aggressive and sneaky, too. But he didn't come presenting fruit first. You are a baka. You're all a bunch of bakas. He's a baka, too. I feel like I'm doing everything wrong. Yes. This is therapy, right? The detective chuckled when Ayase cut him off. Do you know the Muffin Man? Even Ayase could tell he was talking about how she jumped off the roof. I thought we were going to be actually progressing in the story this week. It wasn't a suicide attempt. Okay. I was taking myself to higher places, 3 Days Grace style. That was his second question. Ayase sighed a little. It was inspired the apocalyptic psalms of the Book of Gladiel. Okay, Gladiel, the king of wicked hearts, is about to descend upon our world. Oh. Uh-huh. Oh, the Black Knight always triumphs. That's a good idea. That's smart. I was thinking. Tooth. Nah. Tooth. It's just like one of my Japanese animes. She does not like him. Ayase's eyes narrowed at the detective's comment. The detective ignored her protests, but she was used to that. Nobody had ever believed what she had to say. He crossed his arms and let out a little sigh. A little sigh for a little boy. It felt like an obvious act, but Ayase wasn't inclined to call him out. Oh, I'm certain it will be. But I do it anyway because who's gonna stop me? You know, like the studio that makes the game. Ayase's eyes narrowed just a little at the phrase, you guys. She looked down at her hands instead of at the detective as she spoke. Oh, alright. Well, whatever. Who cares? I don't even care. I just fucking bye-bye. Enjoy your fruit. And then suddenly, an electronic sound filled the room. The detective frantically pulled a phone out of his suit pocket. He grinned as he pressed the button to reject the call. He turned back toward Ayase.
綾瀬ちゃんは映画見るっすか？スパークウォーズって知らない？それに出てくるダース・スパイダー伯爵のテーマなんす。今のメロディー。
Wham, 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 wham. That's copyrighted material. She wasn't interested in movies at all. Ayase had already decided she was under no obligation to answer any more of his questions, and silently returned to look out the window and grab the sword and slice him in twain. I bet. Hey, Ayase, do you want to hear me wax poetic about how the girls ruined Spark Wars? You want to hear about how much I hate the 8th one? If only that's how everybody talked about it. Oh, you don't care. Sorry then. Yeah, please leave. The detective left the room without waiting for her answer. Do you like Star Wars? Anyway, bye. Ayase didn't bother to watch him as he went. Her eyes were watching the sky as it shifted from twilight to azure night. That's pink. I absent-mindedly watched Seira-tan move around my monitor. The final episode of Blood Tune had aired late last night. The story had really picked up by the end, and Achan had reviewed it highly. This was my 3rd time watching it, but I wasn't able to focus on it at all. So, nothing's going good for your boy Takumi Nishijo. I looked at the clock, and it was past 10 p.m. Rimi had left around 8. She'd cheered me up and given me kind words of encouragement. Having her here made me feel less lonely than I had been for the past week. But Rimi didn't seem to think things were as serious as they really were. It was as if she was trying to avoid any talk about New Gen. Maybe she thought I was annoying. Maybe. You think? She'd said somebody she knew had been hurt during the earthquake. Maybe she was busy dealing with that and didn't have time for me. Precious little baby bird. Me. Maybe I was paranoid, sure, but I was still in danger. I could be killed at any moment. Even right now, I'm not paranoid, but, I could be killed at any second. There had to be some reason why Shogun was so obsessed with me. If I could figure it out, maybe it would give me some clue as to how to fight back. Why bother? Who cares? Whose eyes are those? You couldn't go anywhere in Shibuya without hearing those words now, and online everybody had started using it as the killer's name. The killer's name is Whose Eyes Are Those? It's kind of a terrible name. I'd been using that phrase since I was a little kid. Shogun must have known that, and this was his way of sending me a message, or maybe challenging me. When did I start using that phrase? It felt like somebody had said it to me. I vaguely remembered writing it in an essay I'd done in elementary school. I'd even made the title, Whose Eyes Are Those? I could barely remember what the essay was about. Now I wanted to know. It was probably about whose eyes those were. What had I written in it? Did they still have it at home? It was so old they'd probably thrown it out years ago. But I'd always had a habit of putting important things in a big empty box of candy I kept. I called it my treasure box, and there was mostly candy in it. There was a chance it was still there. What should I do? Should I head home and check? But I didn't want to have to face Nanami. I wouldn't know what to say. Ha. You sure are. I slowly stood up from my chair and then went over and collapsed on the sofa.
あなた、なんでここにいんの？これは違うんだからね。私は別にさ、立ち食いそばが好物なわけじゃないさ。何ニヤニヤしてんの？このボケナス。うなれ！侍コンデンサー！
I looked up at the ceiling, half listening to Seida's dialogue. The ceiling was made of cold, exposed steel. Popcorn steel from the look of it. Whoa. There was nothing like knots in wood grain for me to look at and pretend I was seeing a human face. Whoa. Suddenly, in the corner of my eye, I saw a metal box with a design I recognized mixed in with the boxes of H games on my bed in the loft. Whoa, he teleported. I leapt off the sofa and went to the little ladder to look at the bed. A square. The shape of evil. Reddish-brown box, about the size of a B5 sheet of paper. Written on the lid was the word Sable. And on another was written Mark Marrow. This was it. My treasure box. I must have brought it from home, knowing this day would come. I didn't remember bringing it at all, but GJ me. I brought it down from my bed and opened the lid. It was filled with old tests, essays, and scraps from my sketchbook. Most of it was papers, and just a few tiny objects. I took them all out of the box and began to rummage through them. I found what I was looking for almost immediately. After all, it was at the very top. Well, that is sure fortunate. Everything else in this game, it takes them like 45 minutes just to figure anything out. Whose eyes are those? An old, faded essay. The handwriting on the title was awful. Was there some important secret hidden here, within the words? Something that Shogun was obsessed with? What did the homeless man mean when he'd said, most special? Did he mean I was the most specialist boy? I gulped and began to read, being careful not to miss a single word. Whose eyes are those? By Takumi Nishijo, Class 4-3. I dream a lot. In my dream, I am a grown-up, and I get in a time machine and go see myself in the present. The grown-up me doesn't look like me at all. Also, there are a lot of buttons in the time machine. One turns on a shower, one gives you shampoo. I asked the grown-up me how it works, and he said it can go to caveman times or dinosaur times. He asked me what my worst class, and I said math, and he said there is even a switch that will make you good at math. Wow. I tried to flip the switch, and he got mad. He said I need to study harder instead. The grown-up me only got mad the one time, and other than that, he was nice. He told me which girl I'm going to marry and stuff too, but that's a secret, and that's good, because I don't like it because girls have cooties. I also asked about God. He said God's real. Of course he did. I think he's real too. Mom says that Kami-sama sees everything. So if I do bad stuff, he'll send me to hell. What the fuck? Oh dear. So I think I shouldn't do any bad stuff. I need to be nice to my little sister too, or I'll go to super hell. Mom said when you do bad things, it's not God that sees it and comes for you, but the scary man. The bye-bye man. The pee-pee-poo-poo man. The scary man is the whose eyes are those monster. If he looks at you, you go to hell. He doesn't turn you to stone. He doesn't kill you. He sends you to hell. God's eyes and the whose eyes are those monster eyes are everywhere. And there are lots of them. And they're in the sky and on the ceiling and in the walls and at school. So I need to study a lot and do lots of good things to be on God's nice list. But since they're always watching, it's embarrassing to go to the toilet or take a bath. Also, ever since I was little, when I'm not sleeping and I just close my eyes, I'll sometimes dream my mind is like a game or a manga. It's not imagination. I'm special. I'm God's special little boy. But when I do that, the whose eyes are those comes, and so I don't want to do it. I asked Mom, and she said, never do it. Don't close your eyes ever, unless it's to go to sleep. But even when I'm writing this essay, I ask grown-up me in my dream about the time machine, and he says he knows about it, but I'm a kid, so he wouldn't tell me. So from now on, I want to do lots of good things so that I can beat the whose eyes are those monster. The end. F+. Alright, I mean, it's a little harsh. C. See me after class. Yeah, you were a fucking little weird kid, and you're still a weird kid, and you should probably go away. About the only thing I got out of reading the essay was that even back then I had been able to sense the gaze of God. Maybe I was really a weird kid. You turn into a weird adult, or you're 17, you'll be a weird adult soon. It seemed impossible to get anything out of this bizarre essay. It'd be easier to decipher hieroglyphs. No, it's pretty easy. Like, you had a nightmare and your imagination went wild with it. Then I noticed some scribblings on the back of the paper. I remembered that back then I'd love to scribble on things. Whenever there was a picture of some important old guy in my social studies textbooks, I'd always give him a funny-looking mustache or sunglasses, and I love to make little flipbook manga in the corners of my notebooks, or give them the fun little, give them the little devil horns. That's always fun, too. I started to have more and more fun drawing. One time, I'd even had them buy me a sketchbook. Nobody had ever told me I was good at drawing, though. That's okay. Keep at it. I flipped over the paper to look at the scribbles, smiling a little as I remembered the past. This darn good pig. And what I saw was incomprehensible scribblings. Incomprehensible with one exception. There was something I'd seen very recently. IR2. Fun to the power of 10 times NT Warrior equals infrared 2. So, fun to the power of 10 times Mega Man equals IR2. RS-232 to control all your devices. Was it a formula? Something else? Maybe just a meaningless combination of letters and numbers? I couldn't tell. But oh, that's int. That's integer. I only saw the NT, I didn't see the I. Ugh. Curse my Mega Man brain. It was the same formula Shogun had shown me in the chat when he'd first made contact with me. Whose eyes are those? And IR2. Both of them were written on the back of this essay that I'd written many years ago. One of them I'd even forgotten myself. So if Shogun knew it, that meant that he really had been reading my thoughts. Or he's you from the time machine. I mean, obviously, he's the you in the time machine part. He's future you. So Takumi Nishijo is the killer, just his future self. Ugh, not Columbo. Bon was staring closely at a file as he sat in Frieza's meeting room. Or rather, the small space in their office surrounded by shelves that served as one. Oh, fucking Yua Kusunoki. Yua was sitting across from him, looking timid and scared. Every once in a while, she'd glance across from him. She looked like a kid showing a parent her report card that didn't have good letters on it. Bon was reading the report she'd compiled on Takumi Nishijo and the New Gen cases. It even had the chat log between Takumi and Shogun from the day before the Crucified incident. Yua's conclusion was that Takumi was behind the New Gen killings.
すごいわね。これ全部
Hooray, you got any snacks?
はい、一応。
Yua looked down at her feet as Momose gave her the compliment. She seemed to be staring directly at the Garo Froggy's straps on her bag. She was talking to a police detective and the head of a private detective agency. They were professionals at this kind of thing, but incompetent as all fuck when it comes to being side characters in this type of story. From their perspective, anything she tried to do on her own would probably just look like a child pretending to be a detective. But both Ban and Momose were impressed at the quality of her report.
なかなかいい着眼点だ。
Too bad it's all bullshit.
とりわけこの西条匠の多重性ってのが興味深い。西条匠は多重人格であり、オリジナルとなった西条匠の人格が眠っている。
I can't believe this is gonna go on for another week.
本当に面白い。
Yeah, fascinating stuff. I mean, I wish there was some fascinating stuff. That would be wonderful.
でもちょっとばかり
But it's fucked. You're terrible at this. Quit.
刑事さんはその西条くんの。
はっきり言っていいかい。
Yua's face tensed up for a second, and then she nodded.
警察じゃ西条容疑者として見ていない。
へえ、そうなの。
I disagree. It wasn't just Yua. Momose was surprised too. Ban chuckled a little. He leaned back into his chair and put his hands behind his head.
少なくとも貼り付け事件じゃ西条は白だ。遺体を貼り付けていた杭には指紋がべったり付着しててな。
That is helpful.
西条の指紋を手に入れて照合してみたんだが全く合致し
Yua began to turn pale, and her lips started shaking. But I wanted him to be the killer. As the theory she'd believed in so much collapsed right in front of her face, the first thing she felt was guilt about all the things she'd said to Takumi.
杭にあった指紋から容疑者についてはほぼ固まってまだマスコミにも公表してないけどな。
Yeah, right.
ちなみにそれ諏訪のお手柄だったりする。
諏訪ちゃんは頑張ってるっていうのに、バンちゃんはよくここでのんびりしてられるね。
Ganbate.
実はあれ捜査本部から外されたんだわ。
Actually, I'm not supposed to be doing this at all.
はあ。
本来の捜査サボって G レートのこととか調べて。
Oh, they caught me looking into fucking pseudoscience, and then I get kicked off the task force. Typical bullshit. From Bond's perspective, there was actually no need for Suwa to call him and tell him about the seventh murder. He'd wanted to tell his junior partner that, but had missed his chance.
あんたね、もっとうまく立ち回りなさいよ。
And I'd said I don't care.
まあバンちゃんに G レートのことを教えた私にも責
There
任は
you
あるよ。
go. Accept the blame. Let this mediocre man think he's done nothing wrong.
それに G レートの件は個人的にも気に。
It's face she's making just... Why am I still fucking here?
まあ西条にしても貼り付け以外の事件じゃもしかするとユアちゃんの推理が正しいかも。
ニュージェネは同一犯による連続殺人事件じゃないって。
まだなんと。ただついさっきダイナの個人的には犯人は複数いると思う。
Oh dear, I've said too much.
口外したって知られたらクビになる。
He smiled mischievously and put his finger to his lips.
で問題なんだ。
Yua was surprised. She was sure that she'd been called here to talk about Takumi.
聞きたいことってのはユアちゃんは青井瀬名って子を知ってるかい？君の同級生のはずなんだ。
Do you know every girl in your grade? All of them? Do you know them all? Why don't you know them all? Yua thought a little, then shook her head apologetically.
名前は聞いたことがあるような気がしますけど。
ああそうか。
Fuck.
その人が。
ああ全くの別件だ。昨日徹夜したのもその子のこと調べてた。
あんたさっき女子高生の生態がどうとかって。
Bond gave her a wink, then quickly turned back to Yua.
例えば学校でものすごい手品を使う女生徒が。
Yeah, her name is Himiko Yumeno. she's the ultimate magician, but she claims to be a mage.
いえ
She's not doing magic tricks. It's actual magic.
さっぱり話が見えないわね。
Me neither, sis.
何のこと？
例えば何もない空間から剣を取り出すような手品とか。
My favorite pose. Yua's face jolted upwards. Her expression was filled with shock. She was almost faint with fright.
どうしてそれ
Bond seemed a little surprised, despite being the one who'd asked the question.
心当たりがあるのかい？
Yua hesitated for a moment before giving him a firm nod.
どこで見た？
駅の近くの地下道です。西条くんと岸本さんが。
フェスだな。それで
Yua gave him a brief description of how she'd chased after Takumi 2 weeks ago, how she'd gone to the manga cafe to talk to him, how she'd been a little too forceful when talking to him and he'd run away. Now she'd chased him all through Shibuya, how he'd eventually lost her, and then when she was about to give up, she'd seen him and Ayase going into a tunnel.
だから私その階段の上から
She's just there with binoculars like, what are you two fuckers up to?
二人は階段の一番下で、どんなことを話していた。そしたら
But it was about swords.
岸本さんが剣を
Oh no, Yua can see the swords.
すごく大きな剣でバッグにも入らないような。
まさか。
Wow.
俺が見たものと同じだな。
Eh?
俺が見たのは岸本じゃなかったかな。さっき名前を出した青井瀬名っていう少女だ。実は
Oh, you hear that piano theme going in the background. They know this shit. Whoa.
その手品、渋谷の若い子たちの間ではや
Must be magic.
私が見たあれはそれに
他にも何か見たの？
信じてもらえるかどうかわからなくて、誰にもあの時岸本さんは
I saw her teleport. Yua paused for a moment to wet her dry lips, so she started going, excuse me. She didn't seem sure whether or not she should speak. Her gaze was wandering about the room, looking anywhere but at the people in front of her, so she's going around like, sorry. But eventually, she seemed to make up her mind and looked straight at Momose.
二人に分身したんです。
Dun dun dun.
まるで本当にその場に二人いるみたいでした。
Sorry, that wasn't dun dun dun.
私、わけがわからな
My
くて。
god. Dun dun dun. Dun dun dun. And end chapter? Nope. There was a heavy silence in the meeting room. None of the three of them seemed to have any idea what to say.
とにかく
And so they're gonna keep talking.
そんな手品見て、まあそれと岸本綾瀬も青井瀬名も西条匠と接触したことは確認済みだ。これが偶然とは思えねえわけよ。
西条くん、
Yeah, but she's also made contact with Nishijo, and you've made contact with Nishijo. Where are your swords?
あの少年の周囲ではどうも現実
There's something rotten in the state of Denmark. Bond remembered what he'd said during his phone call. Yeah, there, if only. The other two didn't hear his whisper. Momose had one of her employees bring them tea. To break the oppressive silence, she took a sip and sighed. Then she forced a smile and tried to change the subject. How about them cowboys?
ところでゆあちゃん、そのカバンにぶら下がってるカエル。
You big Sergeant Frog fan?
あ、はい。
Yua let out a sigh of relief, glad to be off the subject.
なんて言うんだっけ？
ゲロカエルです。
いろいろ種類が出てるんじゃなかった？10種類ぐらい。
はい。
None of them are Meteru, though. And they're not as good as Upas. I only care if they're Metaru Upas.
私はその友達からもらっただけなので詳しくは知らないんですけど。
It's just a frog.
なんだってこんな
A stupid fish frog.
見た目だって俺の方が
Why do kids love stupid shit, huh?
バンちゃん、寝言は寝てから言いなさい。
Fuck you, man.
冗談って
私も実はそのどうして流行っているのかよくわからないんです。
あら、結構可愛いと思う。
That's why they're popular. There you go. It's a plush keychain frog. People love that shit.
ももちゃんの見る目も衰えたな。
セロンは私の方が正しいって証明してるじゃん。
Kill him.
バンちゃんも買いに行った方がいいわよ。
一体どこへ行けば買えるものなんだ。
ゲロカエルの専門ショップ。
Oh, whole ass stores. Not even. It's not just something they sell everywhere like Funko Pop. There's stores dedicated to it.
専門ショップだ。
そこで金曜日に行列に並べば買えると思います。
金曜日。
毎週
No, that leads into my time off.
ものが発売になるんです。好きな子は
Like me. Bon and Momose had begun to glance at each other as Yua spoke. Bon was stroking his chin. Suspicious style.
金曜。
Friday, huh? I prefer Saturday where kids go out and play, and I was up in my room, I let the stereo blaze. Something is suspicious. The gravity must be wrong for people to be into frog keychains.
まさかバンちゃん。
当たってみる価値は
I don't think it is. I mean, it is because it's clearly going to lead to something because the game wants it to, but in real life, this would be an absolutely idiotic line of inquiry to follow. When I went to school on Thursday, I got an unexpected offer from Misumi to go visit Ayase in the hospital. I would not have gone with him. I hadn't thought of that at all, and it had caught me off guard. He's going to be a pervert, though. For some reason, before I could answer, Rimi had said she wanted to go. I ended up going along with them. Just to be clear, it's not that I was some cold person who didn't care about her. I have to put that in there. I have to make sure I say that, because up to this point, you would absolutely, as the audience, believe that that is exactly how Takumi Nishijo is. But with the threat of Shogun looming, I didn't have it in me to worry about other people. I don't want to die. Misumi had gone in through the front door, but when he got to the lobby, he didn't seem sure what to do.
どうしたの？
Hello, where's the fucking famous person?
いや、岸本の病室ってどこなんだろうなって思ってよ。
In an anime, this would be the moment where there would be like a musical sting, and all of them would make some sort of exaggerated pose and go, Gah! Had he come all this way without actually bothering to check? If so, what a baka.
ここは外来
An absolute baka.
病棟は隣。
そうなのか。
Fuck.
大臣、しっかりしてよ。
Why are you friends with him? Rimi, why are you friends with either one of them? Like, obviously there's going to be something about Takumi Nishijo that you're in on, and you got to stay close to him, but why the other guy? Like, do you really need two dead weight men in your life? This was the hospital I'd come to ever since I was little. I had just been here a while ago, in fact, so I had a pretty good idea of the basic layout. Suddenly I remembered what had happened to Dr. Takashina and let out a small moan the others didn't hear. Oh. As Misumi headed for the inpatient rooms, I looked behind me.
で、病棟の何号室だと思う？
69420.
そんなのわかんないよ。
This was a general hospital with any number of departments in it. I would guess.
多分 外科じゃないかな。でももしかすると精神科かも。
When she'd fallen, she hadn't looked like she was that badly injured, and if she was in bad enough shape mentally to try and jump off a building, it was entirely possible they'd put her there. It had happened to me after the incident at O-Front, for some reason. Yeah, for some reason. Weird anybody would think that. No, he is not. Do not compliment him.
常識でしょ常識ねタク
Maybe not everybody. I wouldn't have known unless I'd been here so many times. Demi stopped just before we got to the inpatient area.
私お手洗い行ってくる先に行ってて
Alright guys, we made it. I'm gonna go drop trowel. Have fun without me. She waved and headed back toward the outpatient wing. Why did she come with you? You couldn't have done a lobby like, hey guys, I really gotta piss first. Misumi and I figured we'd bother the other patients if we wandered around, so we decided to ask about ISA at the nurse's station. Just like I thought, they gave us the number of a room in the psych ward. Cool. Uh-oh. The room was small and simple in layout. There was a bathroom on the right side from the entrance and a bed near the back. The evening sun was pouring in through the window on the far wall. There was no sign of ISA herself. The bed was unmade, so she must have been here a little bit ago. And okay, delusion over. Where'd she go?
さあ
I miss you so. Seems like it's been forever. The window was open and the wind was blowing into the room, making the white curtains billow. It had been bothering me ever since I came into the room. I hate what you've done with the place. I felt awful. Negative delusions coming on. Like she might have jumped out the window. Maybe she did. Like if I looked down, I'd see her below, covered in blood, brains splattered on the pavement. I had to see. I walked toward the window with shaking legs like a man possessed. I stood at the window. The sky was the color of evening. The air was crisp with the scent of fall. The color of evening. What would I see if I looked below? Something terrible? I gulped. Oh! And very, very slowly leaned out my head and looked below. There was nothing there at all. I couldn't see ISA's body on the ground below. I must have been overthinking things. Relieved, I went to pull my head back inside. Suddenly, I noticed something. Uh-oh, that's never good. The window on the floor below ours, there was a towel there, flapping in the wind. I thought it was just a white towel, but I could see what looked like blue letters on it. The way it was flapping made it hard to read. And I really didn't care about it anyway. Why should I care about the lettering on a towel? I mean, I'm bringing it up. But for some reason, I found myself trying desperately to read it. And then I looked closely and saw that the letters said, "Whose eyes are those?" Whose eyes are those? I couldn't speak. I couldn't look away. And then somebody tossed him over the side. An unseen hand pulled the towel inside, as if they'd known I'd seen it just now. That was impossible. Me fail English, that's impossible. There was no way that somebody I knew could be occupying the hospital room exactly below this one. And even if somebody who wasn't a patient was waiting there for me, they'd have no way of knowing I'd look out the window or not. There weren't any security cameras in the room. It was just a coincidence. It had to be. But what if it wasn't? Terrified. Tongue-tied, and I'm terrified. I looked back toward the door. Nobody was there. The door was closed. I backed away from the window, feeling scared and creeped out. Don't think about it. Force yourself not to think about it. And then you get me watching this like, what is this fucking guy's deal? It's a coincidence. It's just a coincidence. I kept repeating that to myself over and over. Hey, you're looking rather fucking strange, brother. I looked up in shock when Misumi said my name. He'd taken a book off the shelf and was reading it.
ヌーだぜヌーこの雑誌まだ続いてたんだな
New was a magazine that dealt with UFOs, aliens, psychic powers, religions, urban legends, strange phenomena, ancient super civilizations, and lost technology. Anything even tangentially related to the occult. Oh, fucking... Not super civilizations. So many of those end up just being racist. It didn't surprise me in the least that a girl who constantly talked about crazy stuff like Ayase was reading it.
こっちの文庫本は何々グラジオルキ目視録詩編
I'd never heard of the book, but I'd heard of the word gladio somewhere before. Where was it again? It felt like it had been really recently.
岸本と付き合うとなると
You're not gonna date Kishimoto. Fuck you, dude. Was he still planning on dating Ayase somehow? Last time she shot him down hard. Oh. Suddenly, I realized Ayase's D-sword was leaning up against the wall. Its shape reminded me of a space battleship you might see in a sci-fi movie. Do you remember that? It's the exact same description I gave of it last time. Every time I saw it, I was struck by how cool it looked, and the way that it combined beauty and cruelty. It wasn't glowing right now, it was just sitting there, but still, you could feel its heavy presence. Misumi showed no indication that he saw the sword. I guess normal people really couldn't see them. Maybe if I just took it without telling Ayase, it would be mine then, right? If I could get a D-sword that easily, then all my problems would be solved. I gulped and reached out for the weapon with a trembling hand. I went to grab the blade. Why would you grab the hilt, idiot? I thought I grabbed it, but my hand passed right through it. I'd grabbed only thin air. I tried again, but the same thing happened. Misumi's just watching this dude just go like this, like he's trying to catch a fucking tsetse fly. Couldn't take it. Couldn't even touch it. Was the sword not real booted right now? And since there was no shared awareness of its existence, it was just a delusion of Ayase's. An illusion, a dream, an after image. Wow.
何やってんの
Yeah, what the fuck's wrong with you, man? Misumi was looking at me, confused. Reasonable. We waited another 10 minutes, but there was no sign of Ayase. Rimi, who supposedly had just gone to the bathroom, was nowhere to be seen either. Where had she gone? They were up on the roof, fighting.
リミってこの病室の場所知ってたか
We'd asked about the room at the nurse's station after splitting up with Rimi. She might be wandering around looking for us.
あいつバカだからな
Yeah, what a
俺
dumb
たちみたいに
baka.
誰かに聞こうって発想がないのかもしれない
She's so stupid.
探しに
I was nervous without her around. There was no way to know for sure if this hospital was safe. If Shogun was reading my mind, he'd know exactly where I was.
そうだな待つのも飽きたしタクもあいつがいないと寂しいだろうからななあぶっちゃけリミとはどうなんだ
え
付き合ってんのかって聞いてんだよお前ら
付き合ってないよ
I am offended by that. Ah, how dare you! Fuck you! Die! Push him out the window. As I spoke, my face flushed. Like a toilet. Me and Rimi? Dating? With a 3D girl? Oh, yuck. I'd had some delusions about the idea, sure. I wasn't into 3D girls. But Rimi was a pretty big part of my life now. But when Rimi had offered to stay by my side, she'd also said this.
そんなの
Solely platonic.
言ってるでしょ
In other words, she saw me as a friend. She'd have no interest in dating a creepy otaku like me, obviously. And Rimi didn't seem like the type who'd want to date anyway. Based on what? Just not caring that much for you? Misumi and I decided to split up and look for her. That's a great idea. Misumi checked the floor. Yeah, split up so that way you guys can be even... Then you have to find the other person. Misumi checked the floor below, so I went to check the one above. Just shouting. I passed by an elderly man in his 50s. Elderly in his 50s. Elderly in his 50s. Oh. He was clearly a patient here. He was slowly staggering down the hallway calling out for Ami, whoever that was. I ignored him. No, you didn't. You called specific. You called about. You made specific mention of him. You did not ignore him. Walking around the hospital didn't really bother me as much as I thought it would. It was probably because I'd been here so many times. Still, the thought that Shogun might appear from behind every corner or open door made my heart race. There were those strange screams I heard sometimes too. They were bad for my heart. The walls and floor of the hallway were all the same off-white color. Some doors were open, some weren't. I peeked inside a few of them to see if Shogun was lurking there. Hello, Shogun? Is there anybody in here who wants to cut my fucking head off? Speak now. Get it over with. Please. So I'm tired of this guy. Each room had 2 beds, and I could see human-shaped forms beneath the sheets. Those must have been patients sleeping. But for some reason, all of them were turned away from me, and I couldn't see their faces. That's important information. That they are patients. There weren't many people out in the hallway. There'd been the old man calling for Ami, and then a nurse. They'd been the only 2 I'd seen. I didn't want to stay here for too much longer. I wasn't sure why, but that's how it felt. The air felt heavy. It wasn't unpleasant, but it felt like I didn't belong here. You don't. You are not a patient here, and you are here to harass a classmate who just went through a traumatic event. You do not belong here. As I kept going forward, I saw that the hallway turned to the right. There must be more rooms down there, I thought, as I nervously rounded the corner. Pipe and drape. Unbelievable. I saw a wall right in front of me. Unlike the off-white of the other walls, this one was painted black. I see a large wall and it has been painted black. No color anymore, it is just painted black. For some reason, my heart began to race faster and faster. Couldn't move. As my vision began to swim, breaststroke style. I thought I was just feeling dizzy and closed my eyes, but when I put my fingers on my eyelids, I could feel my eyes twitching beneath them. Like, why do I feel it twitching? A cold feeling, like ice, worked its way up my body from below. Started in the perineum, started making its way to the forehead. It sucked. I stood there, completely still, forgetting to breathe, and then I died. Game over. The end. I stared at the black in front of me. That's racist. I felt like it was pulling me, drawing me in. An endless black that continued on for eternity. There was nothing there, but somebody was watching me. I could feel the gaze of God stabbing into the back of my neck. It was far, far worse than it had ever been at the base. Don't look at me. Oh, cinema. I used every scrap of mental power that I had to force my eyes closed. Only then could I breathe. Panting, I stepped back. I lowered my head, turned around. I ran. Tail between my legs style. Cowardly. Let's fucking go. I headed back to the floor ISA's room was on as fast as I could, stopping to catch my breath only after I'd headed down the stairs. I touched my neck and found it was covered with a thick, sticky layer of sweat. This guy sweats so fucking much. It wasn't just my neck. My whole body was soaked. What the hell was that? Was it Shogun reading my mind? Making me sweat? I could still sense the gaze of God. In this context, I think that's just me. It was still hard to breathe. I was still cold. I needed a blanket. I felt exhausted. I wanted to go home. I wanted to have Rimi take me back to the base, and then I could stay there and never leave it again. I needed the girl to bring me back because I can't do anything on my own. I'm a scared little boy. Even if I did manage to find ISA, she'd be annoyed, not happy to see me. Misumi was only here because he was trying to get laid. I was an idiot to play along with it. Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Oh, there's the nurse. She's right there. That's the nurse who gets jump scared in The Exorcist 3. Watch out for scissors. I should just go home before Shogun and Yua show up. Those two could appear anywhere at any time. I know exactly where I want to go. I want to go back to the planet right before Soren destroyed the star. I have to stop him. They'd be able to find me easily. I couldn't relax anywhere. I headed back to ISA's room. I was staggering, barely able to walk. I had to put my hand on the wall for support. Was Misumi back? I wondered. I slowly kept moving, praying that he'd managed to find Rimi.
山井さんがまたアミーちゃんっていう名前を呼んでたんですよ。
I could hear the voices of the nurses in front of me. I looked up to see the two nurses walking toward me. One was young, the other was a plump, older woman.
一体誰のことを探してるのか。
それこの病院に伝わる階段よ。
Hanako-san, that's who he's looking for.
誰も知らない幻の
Hanako-san, Hanako-san.
そこにアミーちゃんが入院してるらしいわ。もう
She
何年
died,
も
she
前からの
died.
噂。
I put my head down and waited for the two of them to pass. I held my breath so that they couldn't hear how much trouble I was having breathing. I could tell they were looking at me suspiciously, but all I could do was try to ignore them, making myself look even more suspicious. When they were gone, I started to walk again. Somehow I managed to make it to the nurse's station. ISA's room was in front of the nurse's station. I must have passed it. I groaned and wiped the sweat off my forehead. It still felt like somebody was watching me. Feels like everybody's watching me. I could feel a piercing sensation in my chest. My ears were ringing too. I felt awful. It seemed like I might pass out at any moment. I'd been just fine when I got here. What had happened to me? Well, you've worked yourself into a panic, it seems. You're going through an episode, and you should probably get that taken care of. I was in so much pain, I just couldn't take it. I decided to get help from one of the nurses at the nurse's station. Hello, I am all kinds of fucked up. Help? But there was only one person there. What? Evidently, she hadn't noticed me. She had her back turned and was muttering something as she worked. There was a clipboard in her hand. Well, maybe the clipboard should go in the bin, because I hate the clipboard. She was writing something on the paper it held. Oh, I'd met her before. It was Hazuki, the nurse. That's right. This was the mental ward at AH Tokyo Hospital. AH, I guess, is Urquhart. I did not know that. Of course she'd be here. I talked to her twice in just the last month. She's a character in the game. Perfect. If she saw me, she'd help me out immediately, or tase me. Or ignore me. Just then, I heard a beeping noise. It sounded important. Hazuki put down her clipboard and flipped a switch in front of her. The beeping noise stopped. Evidently, someone had hit a button to call a nurse. She quickly ran out of the nurse's station. She seemed not to notice me. I was suffering so much, just a few feet away from her, and she didn't even see me. She dealt with an actual patient before me. How dare she? I couldn't stand. The vertigo was incredible. Helplessly, I went inside the nurse's station and decided to wait for her to come back and just, kind of rooted around and looked at shit. I found the stool she'd been sitting on and sat down on it. My head hurt so bad. It was like the earthquake a week ago. But the pain was different somehow. Maybe. I wanted something to drink. I'd been out of breath for so long that even breathing hurt. I took a quick glance around me. I saw the clipboard Hazuki had been writing on. I could see what was drawn on it. Trogdor the Burninator. Oh, I was pretty close. Some sort of Muppet. Last time I'd seen her, she'd been smiling as she'd written something on it. I thought she was taking down my temperature, or the names of drugs. Go get the drugs from my generation. Get the drugs. So what was this? I couldn't understand.
これって
That's probably fine. I'd seen it somewhere before. What could this mean? I'd seen this terrible drawing somewhere before. Where had I seen it? Maybe if I blinked red. My head hurts so bad. The stabbing pain. The prickling at the back of my neck. Red, black, drawing, "Don't look at me." Whose eyes are those? I picked up the clipboard. There were several papers there, all medical charts. For a nurse. Strange. I flipped through them. The second one had the same terrible picture. I flipped to the next. The third one was the same. The fourth, too. And the fifth, the sixth. They all had the same picture on them. This picture. It was crucified. Fade. The shipping crate that Takumi Nishijo called home was perched silently on the roof of an old building in Shinsen. Senna Aoi was coming here now for the second time. The first had been a few days prior, when she'd run into Takumi and Kozue at Center Street. She'd secretly followed him home. That's how she found this place. No, you should. Just break in, who cares? Steal all his fucking perverted shit and throw it over the side of the railing there. Nah, that's probably gonna be fine. You'll be fine. Then go away, right? You tell her. Senna spoke coldly, without even looking back at Kozue. Senna had come here to sneak into Takumi's room. I wouldn't recommend you do that. That's gonna be one crusty and dusty room. Takumi Nishijo wasn't normal, I'll say. After talking to him several times, that was the conclusion she'd reached. It took several times? He was different from normal gigalomaniacs like Senna and Kozue. Either the strength of his delusions was incredibly intense, or he was receiving some kind of artificial support. Steroids. Either way, his very existence seemed like it was unstable, somehow. Something about him bothered Senna a lot. She was looking for a man named Hatano. Fuck, okay? And it was possible that Takumi Nishijo was connected to him somehow. She had no way of being sure. Me neither, because I have no idea who the fuck you're talking about. Like, we're 27 hours in. Are we really introducing new concepts? Like, we should be kind of wrapping this shit up. But if there was any chance, even a small one, she wouldn't rest until she'd ruled it out with her own eyes. As long as she kept doing that, she'd find her target eventually. That's what Senna believed. There was a padlock on the door. Nothing a sword can't take care of. Senna gave a little snort style and brought down her D-sword. She'd already real booted it. The padlock shattered easily. Senna had already seen that Takumi had left school with 2 friends heading in the direction of the station. And even if he did find out, she didn't care. Senna would do anything to achieve her goal, even if that meant making somebody mad. Wow. What conviction. Or having them call the cops. Amazing. She opened the door and went inside. Looking at the horror around her. The place was like a garbage dump. Senna couldn't help but wince and give a small moan. This place is disgusting. What is on that couch? Oh, I hope that's milk.
なんで楽しそうなんだ小杖。
靴は脱いだ方がいいのかな？
Not unless you want to catch a disease. You're gonna catch cholera in this place for sure. Senna sighed and went inside the room without bothering to remove her shoes. Yeah, good. Yeah, get that idea of respect out of your head.
お人形さんいっぱいなのら。
Ooh poo.
たくみさんって変態さんだったんだ。すごいな。
Is that really a sugoi? I don't know if sugoi fits there. Kozue. Senna ignored Kozue, who seemed strangely impressed for some reason, and went over to the computer. I wouldn't touch that either. There's no way all those keys work. She turned on Takumi's PC, and while she waited for it to boot, she ran her eyes across the contents of the desk. Her eyes narrowed as she picked up an old sheet of essay paper. Whose eyes are those?
その目誰の目だ。
Kozue had been looking over Senna's shoulder. She was jumping up and down with delight.
やっぱりたくみさんがその目誰の目の人だったのら。コズピーはパンパカパンだったポン。
Pon Paka Pon. I feel like I've heard that somewhere. That Pon Paka Pon. Was it in Nichijo? Or maybe my dear friend Nokotan? I know I've heard Pon Paka Pon. Oh no, it was in Keep Your Hands Off Aizuken. That's where I've heard somebody do Pon Paka Pon. That's what they say when they see the tanuki. They go pon, paka pon, paka pon. I don't know what it means, but I know they do it. I knew I would solve that mystery. Senna, however, seemed much less interested in the essay than Kozue. She flipped it over to see if anything was written on the other side. Suddenly her eyes went wide with shock. Faint with fright, one could say. What she saw there was...
モンピー人がいっぱいだね。
was a fucked up theme park ride.
アイアンにだって。セナさん
Senna was gritting her teeth so loud you could physically hear it. Yeah. Her expression was even angrier than usual, and her hands shook with rage as she held the essay.
そうか。西条が IR2 を生み出した。
Her voice was quiet. Senna crumpled up the essay into a ball and crushed it with her fist. And then that's good.